My female 30, best friend Dan, male 30, got married to Lauren, female 27 yesterday. Me and Dan have been best friends since high school, and despite always being platonic with no romantic interests on either side, his now wife Lauren has always disliked me. In their 3 years of dating, I have not been allowed to see Dan alone because she feels that it's suspicious that I want to hang out with him. Honestly, I just miss my friend. Despite me being happily married, she's always kept me at arm's length. I always figured this was because she's from a very conservative family. Dan has spoken to her multiple times, and after she'll back off for a bit before reverting to complaining about him being friends with a girl again. It's not ideal, but she makes Dan happy, so I made my peace with it. That brings us to the wedding. Originally, I was going to be in the groom's party, but Lauren ended up crying, saying a wedding is not a place to swap gender roles. Dan was fighting her on this, but I told him I'll just attend as a guest and not to choose this hill to die on. The dress code was warm-tone garden party, and we were encouraged to wear earthy, warm colors. I picked out a bronze orange dress that I thought fit this perfectly, and the style even matched some examples they gave. In short, I thought I had nailed it. The wedding went great, however. At the reception, Lauren dragged me aside and said, "I cannot believe you would wear gold to my wedding. You're not the first prize, you're just king trashy." I was so shocked in the moment, I just stared at her. She practically screamed at me to leave, and she was drawing attention, so I grabbed my husband, said goodbye to Dan, and left. Dan reached out after and told me he was upset I left his wedding so soon. Lauren's mom has texted me saying I ruined the wedding for her daughter, and I'm stupid for wearing a gold dress. She's saying it's as bad as wearing white. I was genuinely not aware this was a thing. I want to reach out to Dan to explain, but I don't know if I'm in the wrong here. Am I the idiot? Mini update. Wow, guys, I genuinely didn't know what to expect posting to strangers on this, but I am so thankful to my husband for suggesting this. I needed a non-biased view on this wearing gold to a wedding issue, and now it's clear that that was never the issue. Many of you asked if the dress I wore stood out, and honestly, I know I'm biased saying this, but I genuinely don't think so. Another girl was wearing the exact same dress, but in a dark red, which we had a laugh about. Slip dresses are a pretty common wedding guest dress where I am, and it was the type of dress that was recommended by the bride. I think many of you were right in saying that it was never about the dress, but how I looked wearing it. I do want to start this update by thanking my husband, who suggested I post here and been having a ball reading your comments since posting, and even posting a photo of us this morning with a caption along the lines of "My gold prize of a wife, I am winning in life thanks to you." Turns out Dan found out pretty quickly what actually happened and called me last night. Apparently, Lauren's mom had told him I was really drunk and told Lauren her dress wasn't it, so I was requested to leave. Dan had his suspicions that it was bullcrap, but it wasn't until his mom calling him that confirmed it. Turns out she was nearby when Lauren pulled me aside, and ironically was actually wearing a yellow gold dress, and tore him a new one about letting Lauren treat me like that. Dan didn't have a solution when he called. I could tell he was emotionally exhausted and pretty defeated. He said he wished I had taken it out on the open bar rather than leaving, but he understood why I left. He thanked me for taking the high road and that it hasn't gone unnoticed. He apologized for what happened. Apparently, this is an ongoing fight between him and Lauren. For all of those who said Lauren just hates me, turns out it's 100% true. Apparently, she has been trying to convince Dan to cut me off because that's what a good husband does. He said he thought she had gotten over it now that they were married. I told him that he needs to focus on his happiness and that I will always be here to support him, and that I will take a step back if that's what he needs. They were supposed to leave for their honeymoon yesterday, but when Dan called, they were still at home, so who knows? I've blocked Lauren and her mom and forwarded the messages to Dan as recommended. Thanks again, everyone, for your comments and judgment. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. I don't think it would have mattered what color your dress was. The now wife hates you and was going to find something to yell at you for whatever you wore. If it wasn't the dress color, it would have been something else. Tell your friend why you left early and make sure he knows how his wife treats you. Not the idiot. Comment 2. Just so I'm up to speed, as a guest I can't wear white, black, because that's mourning the marriage. Red, because that means I've slept with, want to sleep with the groom. Gold, because no one knows why outside of this bride and her mother. Or orange/copper/bronze, because those are the same as gold. Now, for the update, thank you for sticking around for more of this saga. Just when I thought things couldn't get more twisted, the past month has been pretty tough. After the wedding fiasco, I kept my distance, giving Dan and Lauren space to sort out their issues. But the universe had other plans. A week after the wedding, I got a call from Dan's sister, Emily. She was in tears, saying Dan had found out Lauren was cheating on him with her ex. The betrayal hit him like a ton of bricks. He was a mess, and Emily was worried sick. She begged me to talk to him, to help him through this nightmare. I was torn. I wanted to be there for Dan, but after everything, I wasn't sure if stepping in was the right move. My husband encouraged me to go, reminding me that Dan would do the same for me. So I went. Seeing Dan in that state was heart-wrenching. He was a shadow of his usual self, angry and confused. He told me how he'd accidentally seen a message pop up on Lauren's phone from her ex, and it all unraveled from there. The lies, the sneaking around, it was all laid bare. Dan was grateful for my support, and for the first time in a long time, we talked like we used to. It was like no time had passed, and the connection we had was still there, strong as ever. But the situation was complicated, and I could see the toll it was taking on him. In the midst of all this, Lauren had the audacity to reach out to me. She was desperate, claiming it was all a misunderstanding and begging me to talk to Dan on her behalf. The nerve of her, after everything she'd done, was astounding. I told her I wanted no part in her web of lies and hung up. Days turned into weeks, and the tension was evident. Dan was trying to figure out what to do next, whether to give Lauren another chance or to end things for good. It was a tough spot, and I could see the weight of the decision on his shoulders. Then out of the blue, Dan did something no one expected. He sold his car, the one he'd been fixing up since high school, and used the money to book a solo trip around Europe. He said he needed time to clear his head, to find himself again after being lost in someone else's shadow for so long. The news of his departure spread like wildfire among our friends. Some thought he was running away, while others, like me, saw it as a bold move to reclaim his life. It was a shock, sure, but it felt right for Dan. Before he left, we met up for coffee. It was a bittersweet goodbye, but I could see the spark back in his eyes. He was scared but excited for the journey ahead. He thanked me for being a true friend, for standing by him when he needed it most. As for Lauren, she tried to make amends, but it was too late. The trust was broken, and there was no going back. She moved back in with her parents, and from what I've heard, she's been laying low, probably reflecting on her choices. Dan's been gone for 2 weeks now, and the updates I get from him are full of life and adventure. He's rediscovering his passion for photography, meeting new people, and most importantly, healing. It's been a hectic ride, but I'm hopeful for the future. Dan's journey is just beginning, and I can't wait to see where it takes him. Thank you for reading. My mom leaves me to raise my brothers alone and questions my parenting, so I expose her rich BF's crimes, and now we live in his mansion without him. I, 17-year-old male, live with my 3 brothers, 15-year-old male, 13-year-old male, 10-year-old male, and my mother, 40-year-old female. We're not very well off. I pay almost half the rent, I pay for groceries more often than not, and I juggle having a job, going to school, and raising these 3 kids, one of whom is disabled. I say raising because my mother, between having 2 jobs and basically never being home, doesn't contribute. She's gone by 8 a.m. and usually not back before 10 or 11 p.m. In the past year, she's been home even less, getting home later and later. I'm pretty sure she goes out drinking. The fight went like this. My mother came home last night a bit before 9 p.m. for once, instead of 11 or later as she's been doing. 15-year-old came out of his room to say hi, and 13-year-old was already on the couch reading something for school. So she hugged both of them and said hi, and said she'd stop by the gas station to buy us all something and gave us all a candy bar, which was cool of her. Then she asked where 10-year-old was because she wanted to say hi to him. Now, I've practically raised these kids on my own for years now, and I do my best. On the very rare occasion my mom comes home early, She usually just goes to bed. I have 10-year-old go to bed at 8 p.m., which I don't think is unreasonable. And I let the other two stay up until 10 p.m. because they're older. We all eat dinner at 6, get home from school around 4, and have a pretty clean routine altogether. Now, my mom was asking where he was, so I told her he was asleep. She asked why, so I told her it's past his bedtime. She told me he didn't have to go to bed that early. I told her he did. She told me no, he didn't. She'd said we could all stay up until 10. I said that doesn't work, and she told me she's the parent, and it does work. And then she said it's not my place to micromanage the other three. She said her kids, her house, her rules. And then she exploded that I could stop being such a control freak because it wasn't my place to do that, or to have signed up 13-year-old for soccer, or to have repainted the fence, or to have taken 10-year-old to the doctor some weeks ago, or any of the things I've been doing without asking her. I told her it's also my house, I pay a lot of rent, and they're basically my kids, because she's never around, so it's more my house, my rules. If we want to play that game, I told her she wouldn't know what works for 10-year-old because she's too busy to know him. I told her I might ask for her input if she was ever around, but she never is, so I don't give a shoot how she thinks I should raise these kids. And she doesn't get to have a say in it. Not anymore. She broke down crying, called me ungrateful for all that she does, said she doesn't know where she went wrong, and left the room. She either went to her room or she fricked off and left the house IDK and IDC. She's an adult, it's her life. 13-year-old said I'm a weenie for making her cry, and 15-year-old left the room a minute later saying he was going to bed. So Reddit, am I the jerk for telling my mother off? Edit, holy shoot, this blew up. Some clarifying points. 1, I don't hate her. Some of y'all be out here dramatic AF. 2, I go to school 8, 10, work 10, 4. Pick my brothers up and maybe work a night shift if you want my schedule. If you want more details, look through my comments. 3, we're not struggling financially, but we really would be if I didn't contribute. 4, I'm not saying she doesn't contribute at all. I'm saying she doesn't contribute to raising her kids. 5, I plan to eventually take custody. 6, special shout out to the person who thinks I should be beaten with a chair. That was a good laugh. Edit 2, God damn, this really blew up. The bedtime debate of all things isn't really what I thought I'd ever end up being internet famous for. Well, thank you all for your kind words now. For a few comments before the update, comment 1. Not the idiot, you're being parentified and it is abuse. I don't fully blame your mom. She didn't choose to be a single parent, but she has inadvertently put you in the position of having to step up and raise your brothers. She doesn't get to go off on you because you are doing what she has basically made you do. Also, 8 p.m. is probably a good bedtime for a 10-year-old. I know my bedtime was 8:30 for most of my childhood and teen years. Those 2 extra hours sleep can make a huge difference at that age. IIRC, at that age, they recommend like 9, 11 hours of sleep a night, so you are doing the right thing by your little brother. Comment 2, not the idiot, oh honey, I'm so sorry you've been forced to be the parent here. My heart genuinely aches for you, and you were absolutely right for pointing all that out to her when she tried to play the parent for once. Now for the update, thanks for sticking around for the update. So last week, things took a busy turn. Remember how I said my mom was hardly ever home? Well, turns out she's been keeping a secret from us all. She's been seeing someone, and not just anyone, a guy who's loaded. She dropped the bomb on us out of nowhere, said she's moving in with him and that we're all invited to join. A mansion with a pool and everything. You'd think that'd be great news, right? But here's the catch. The guy's got a temper, and I don't trust him one bit. We moved, and it was like stepping into another world. But the family dynamics, oh boy, they got twisted. The guy, let's call him Mr. Moneybags, started laying down the law in his house. My brothers were impressed at first, but then he started changing the rules, making them do chores like they were his servants. And Mom, she just let him. Said we needed to adapt. I couldn't stand it. I missed our old life, our routines, the control I had over things. But I kept my cool, bided my time. Then one evening, I overheard Mr. Moneybags on the phone. He was talking about some shady deals, something illegal. I knew this was my chance. I recorded the conversation. I didn't know what I was going to do with it yet, but I had a feeling it would come in handy. The next day, things got even worse. Mr. 2. Moneybags accused me of stealing from him. Some old watch he claimed was worth a fortune. He had no proof, but he didn't need any. He convinced my mom to ground me, take away my phone, my freedom. I was trapped. But I had that recording, and I had a plan. I managed to get a message to one of my friends, told him to come by the mansion. When he showed up, Mr. Moneybags lost it. Thought he was a thief too. But my friend, he's smart. He played along, said he was here to return the watch. Mr. Moneybags accused me of stealing. It was all a bluff, but it worked. Mr. Moneybags backed down, and my mom started to see him for who he really was. That night, my mom came to my room. She was crying, saying she was sorry that she'd been so blind. I played the recording for her. That was the last straw. She kicked Mr. Moneybags out of his own house, said she'd had enough. She had a friend who was a lawyer, and with the evidence from the recording, they managed to get the house put in her name. Don't ask me how. Legal stuff is beyond me. So now we're living in this mansion, just us, no Mr. Moneybags. Mom quit one of her jobs, spends more time with us. She's trying to make amends, trying to be a real mom. It's weird, but in a good way. I'm back in charge of the house rules, and my brothers, they're happier too. As for Mr. Moneybags, last I heard, the cops were after him for that illegal stuff I caught on tape. He's on the run, probably won't be seeing him again. So, yeah, that's the update. Thanks for reading. My stepmom and her husband think they can use my inheritance for their new car and to bail out. My troublemaker stepbrother. But I lawyer up and teach them a lesson about respect and boundaries. So I, 17-year-old male, found out only a few weeks ago that my dad left me a lot of money in a trust. Like, it's such a crazy amount that I didn't really believe it at first. But it's true. The reason is my dad had inherited from both his parents already. He also inherited from the only two uncles he had as well, and one of them was very successful and had a business. This was all explained in a letter my dad wrote to me. He had the trust set up before he came into most of the money, but when he found out his cancer was incurable, he decided to put it all aside for me once all medical bills were paid off for him. My parents were separated but not legally divorced when my dad was sick, died. But they weren't living together or a couple for years. This was 10 years ago. My mom found out about the money because she read the letter he sent to me about the issue. Then she insisted she was joining me to meet with the lawyer to discuss this. When my mom learned about the money, she told her husband, and suddenly the money became a very touchy subject. I can't touch it until I'm 19 with the way my dad set it up. So I have some time to deal with this, but my mom and her husband want me to share the money with my step-siblings, 14, 8, and 7. The money is enough where even if I pay for college and buy a house, I would have money left. The way the trust works, I was told it's also getting interest, which my dad had intentionally set up. My mom and her husband have struggled financially for years. They started dating when his youngest kid was 1. His wife had died, he was going through a legal battle with the mother of his oldest, and his oldest is in therapy for trauma caused by their mom. Also, his youngest was born with some medical issues and has lots of doctor appointments. Between everything, money was tight. We lived paycheck to paycheck, and I worked to make my own life a little more comfortable. But we had no college savings or anything before this. My mom and her husband drained their own bank account to keep a roof over our heads. This has all been brought up to me as a good reason why I should do this. My mom told me it was selfish for Dad to put it all away solely for my future, and he should have been thinking about raising me as well. She told me I might not call her husband Dad or his kids my siblings, but we are a family and that this family has been through so much together, and we have struggled for so long that it would be so good and generous for me to do this. I told her it's not like I can access the money now. She said no, but when I do, I should set up accounts for my 3 step-siblings so they have a better chance at college, and if not college, the chance to have a helpful start in life. Despite all their trying to talk me into it, I said no. I told them I wasn't going to share the money. My mom was so mad, but it was nothing compared to how mad her husband was. They told me to quit being selfish and start acting with compassion. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. If your mom and stepdad were good parents, that's great. If you want to help them out, you can, but you're not at all obligated and it's not their money. Your dad intended you to have it. You don't say how much it is, but even if it funds a house in college, that doesn't make you wealthy, just comfortable. Money goes fast once you start spending it, and it goes even faster if you give it away. Do whatever you want with it, but don't do anything with it just out of guilt. If you share it, it should be something you want to do. You say you don't want to, so don't. Assume your mom and stepdad might not be supporting you more than the minimum from now on, but that's okay. That in and of itself helps the other kids. Comment 2, not the idiot. So your mom's new husband is mad you aren't giving money to his children with your mother? This money came from your father. That was not their father, it was yours. This is whom your father wanted the money to go to. Explain to your mother that if they are going to punish you for doing exactly what your deceased father wanted, they can go fly a kite. Mom should also ask her new husband to stay out of it. He isn't your father. Now for the update. Thanks for sticking around for the update. So things have gone from bad to worse. Remember how I said my mom was mad? Well, her husband, let's call him Rick, took it to a whole new level. He started snooping around my stuff, trying to find any information about the trust. I caught him once, red-handed, with the letter from my dad in his hands. He tried to play it off, saying he was just looking out for the family, but I wasn't buying it. Then out of nowhere, my mom's car broke down. Completely. And guess who they expected to foot the bill for a new one? Yep, me. They said it was the least I could do since I was going to be swimming in cash soon. I refused again. That's when Rick lost it. He yelled, said some things that can't be taken back, and stormed out. My mom just stood there crying, telling me I was tearing the family apart. A few days later, I came home to find my room trashed. My laptop was smashed, my schoolwork scattered, and my personal stuff thrown everywhere. Rick did it, no doubt in my mind. He was looking for the trust documents, I guess, but the worst part? My mom defended him, said he was under a lot of stress and didn't mean it. She begged me to forgive him, to understand. But how could I? He destroyed my things, violated my privacy. I felt so alone. I wanted to stand my ground, but seeing my mom like that, so desperate, it made me feel weak. I didn't say I forgave him, but I didn't push it either. I just cleaned up my room and tried to move on. But then the next shocker hit. My stepbrother, the oldest one, he got into some trouble at school. Big trouble. He was caught with stuff he shouldn't have, and now he's facing expulsion. Rick and my mom are a mess. They're saying without a good school, his future's ruined. And once again, they're looking at me. They want me to use my future money to get him into a private school, to give him a second chance. I'm torn. I know it's not my responsibility, but the look in my mom's eyes, I can't stand it. She's begging me, saying it's the only way to save him. And part of me wonders, what if it was me? Wouldn't I want someone to help me out? So I agreed to meet with a lawyer to see if there's anything I can do without accessing the trust directly. I don't know what's going to happen, but I feel like I'm being pulled in a million directions. I'm trying to do the right thing, but it's hard when everyone's idea of right seems to involve my dad's money. Thanks for reading this mess of an update. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.